What's going on, everybody? Good afternoon. We've got ourselves a big one on the hook right now, people. We've got ourselves some pretty big breaking news. And I know that this doesn't necessarily affect anything on the field right now. It could down the line for sure, but this is about as big a news as you're going to get for an NFL franchise. Per Brady Henderson and Seth Wickersham, so two pretty darn credible sources, I'm inclined to believe what they say. The Seattle Seahawks are going to be put on sale after Super Bowl LX. So we knew this day was coming. We knew that this was eventually going to be the way this played out. We knew that eventually the Seahawks would be sold because they basically had to be sold, but now we have an idea of the timeline. The Seahawks will be put on sale this offseason, and a sale could take place in the next couple of years. Usually these things take a while, but the process will begin. All right, everybody, before we go any further into the video, I want to take a minute to tell you guys about a wonderful app called Sleeper, a one-stop shop for all your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat about sports in real time with other users. You can get all kinds of scores, sports news, and sports alerts with blazing fast speed. And of course, you can play in fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests. So enjoy sports with other people in a community. Download the Sleeper app today and remember to use the promo code SBN, that is SBN, for up to $100 match on your first deposit. And they also have a free $20 entry right now, no deposit required. So pair those two up. Terms and conditions do apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states and growing. Check out the Sleeper app and have fun with sports this year. That is one thing to keep in mind, of course. This is not going to happen instantaneously. There needs to be a buyer. There probably needs to be some kind of a bidding war, and then there needs to actually be the process of the sale. But in the next couple of years, the Seahawks are going to have a new owner. That's not to say that Jody Allen won't be a part of the team going forward. She may end up being part of an ownership group that purchases the team. That is something that I believe has been talked about before. She could kind of sort of sell a part of the team to herself and then sell the rest of the team to other entities. But those other entities are probably going to be majority owners, and the ownership group is just going to look very different than it does right now. The Seahawks, by the way, because they are such a hot commodity right now, could set a record for an NFL team price 7 to 8 billion per a rival team executive. So if you go to the ESPN article about the imminent sale, it goes into some detail here. Paul Allen, the former owner of the team, passed away back in 2018. And ever since then, it's been speculated that eventually the team would be sold. And we eventually did learn that there was a clause in his in the contract, basically, or at the very least, there were directions from Paul Allen to his sister, Jody Allen, to eventually sell both the team, the Seahawks, and the team, the Portland Trailblazers. She, I believe, has sold the Blazers, and she's in the process of handing that over now, and then donate the proceeds to charity. So we knew this was coming. I want to be clear about that. We've known the Seahawks would be sold for years now. What we didn't know is when it was going to happen. Now we actually have some kind of an idea. We haven't gotten any comment from the Seahawks other than to just say that this was known, which they are correct on. Another thing to consider is that if the team had been sold before 2024, then a sale would have triggered sharing 10% of the proceeds with the state of Washington because of an agreement between the city and Paul Allen that if the team was sold within 25 years of his purchase in 1999, then 10% of the proceeds would go to the state. That date is passed, so they don't have to worry about that now. And yeah, it's going to happen. Now, who's going to buy them? I don't know. There are definitely a lot of very, very wealthy people in the state of Washington that I imagine would be intrigued by the prospect of owning an NFL team. Recent entities that have purchased NFL teams have tended to be the uber wealthy, guys like the Walmart Group, the Waltons for Denver or Tepper for Carolina. Now, that doesn't mean they're all going to end up being good owners, but I do think there are owners out there that will be good. And the Seahawks will be a very, very, very appealing buy right now because they are playing in the Super Bowl. They have a young roster for the most part. They have a great young head coach. They have currently what many would consider to be the best general manager in football, and there's a lot going on with this team that is very appealing. It's not like when the Broncos were sold, they were coming off a streak of several years without making the playoffs. They didn't necessarily have a lot to be excited about at that time. So this should break the record. I think the current record is like 6 billion with the Commanders a few years ago when they were sold from Dan Schneider to, I think it's Josh Harris. And, basically, yeah, this should be the record by probably over $1 billion. I imagine the $7 billion low end estimate is probably about right. So hopefully, guys, what I'm gonna say about this, because that's basically all the news that I can, that's typically all I can say. Or excuse me, that's really all I can say about this news. That's really all we know right now. We have no idea who is going to buy the team yet. We are a long way away from finding that out. We could be years away from a sale actually being made for all we know. But one thing that I do want to say is that despite people's reservations, which I think were fair, I think we correctly had reservations about this, but Jody Allen actually ended up being a pretty good owner. She was not Paul Allen, but nobody could be Paul Allen. Paul Allen was an incredible owner, one of the greatest owners of all time. And Jody was not that, but Jody ended up doing good. Jody allowed the team to pursue a trade of franchise quarterback Russell Wilson. I think a lot of owners probably would have put their foot down on that. Jody Allen presumably signed off, or at the very least allowed the team to fire Pete Carroll, the greatest coach in franchise history. Uh, she allowed the team to go their own way in free agency and the draft. She didn't interfere. She participated, but she didn't get in the way of this team building up. In some ways, she avoided doing things that a lot of Seahawks fans, myself included, would have liked her to have done that would have actually not really worked out all that well, or at the very least, what they did do did work out pretty well. And she ended up doing a good job. There are owners out there that are a problem for their own franchises. Jody, I don't think you could ever say she was a problem. Maybe she didn't do everything perfectly. Maybe she wasn't as invested as Paul Allen, but she ended up being a good owner. And we need to make sure our next owner is a good one too, because this is how an NFL franchise or any sports franchise can spiral into a bad place. If you get the wrong owner and that owner decides he's going to be a detriment to his team, then that's really hard to come back from. That's really, really hard to undo. And there are franchises out there right now that are dealing with bad owners, and it feels hopeless for them a lot of the time. So hopefully we nail this, but that's what I do want to say. I was critical of Jody Allen. A lot of Seahawks fans were critical of Jody Allen, and I understand that she was not as good as Paul Allen because I don't know if anybody could be as good as Paul was, but Jody did her job really well, and shout out to her for that because it was definitely a situation where she could have been a complete absentee owner, and she ended up not being that. All right, Seahawks getting sold. What do you guys think? See you guys later. Go Hawks. The new hotness.